Recording. So why do people who come to you with constipation, well, first of all, let me ask you, what is the first thing people think when they're constipated?
Take pills.
Huh?
They always
Okay. Take two. When someone is constipated, what's the first thing they think is causing the constipation?
maybe something they ate, or they don't really know. They usually think, man, my stomach hurts, and they don't even think like, hey, I haven't pooped in 3 days. They're more or less thinking about the problem. Not very many people even ask where it comes from. They don't even think about it, like, oh, maybe it's coming from the food. Am I dehydrated? Am I worrying about something? Is it something stressful in my life? They're not really thinking about any of that. They're going, hey, my stomach hurts and my back hurts. So they're not even going that far asking the question.
Yeah, so someone who experiences constipation a lot is what is the mainstream, if you will, mainstream thought behind what is causing constipation? Like your gut microbiota is imbalanced, or you're not drinking enough water. What's another one?
Food intolerances. They're taking medications. Oh, maybe one of your medications is causing you to be constipated.
Especially
Okay.
pain medications.
Pain pills, yeah. Like I'm not even going to name them, but people are
Yeah.
reading ones.
Most opioids. I mean, migraines, which we'll talk about later, but like whenever I was prescribed certain pain medications that were in the opioid class, like I would take, like in times of desperation where I'm like, fine, like I can't take anything because caffeine works, but I can't take caffeine in the afternoon or evening. So I would take that opioid prescription, and then the next day it's like I would just rather have my pain back because I'm so fucking constipated. It's awful. Yeah. That's why it's always last resort for me. I mean, yeah, the doctor prescribes it, but it just sits there because I would rather just be in pain than that feeling that I feel for 2 days from one fucking pill.
Yeah, you go to the doctor, they give you those pain pills. Now your stomach's in pain, your back's in pain. You go back to the doctor because you're constipated, then they give you a laxative.
I tell you, Metamucil.
Yeah, and then they give you some fiber, some laxatives, and then they send you back with more pain pills, and you get constant, and you're in this back and forth cycle. Ugh, for a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, then you get a mineral imbalance because you took the Metamucil or the laxatives, which then just pulled everything out of you, and your mineral imbalance leads to blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
And then you take your laxative, and then you're also dehydrated after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that too, laxative, people who are addicted to laxatives are that's a mess. Then it becomes to the point where you can't poop without it. I've had a lot of clients like that. What is an unconventional reason that people are really, I've got one, and you know which one it is because I put it in my course, but an unconventional thing that where you tell them the reason they're constipated and they're like, what?
I don't know if you're going to say emotional.
No.
Okay, cool. Inability to digest a problem or their thoughts, because the intestines have because every organ has a physical body, emotional body, mental body, and spiritual body. And when you have a problem on a physical body, then on an emotional and mental body, if you can't digest an emotion or a thought or some kind of deep philosophical question, it's going to affect you at the gut level. So it could constipate you if your thoughts and your emotions and your mind is constipated. That's one unconventional thought that people have, or that people don't think about, that
Yeah, if somebody doesn't understand it though, like how's that work? So I know it's like the LHPA axis, like all your the thoughts become the things, right? Like we all know that. Like what's the mechanism of where your thoughts and your that like radio tower that's like boop, 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 like perceiving things. So then it becomes, parasympathetic, sympathetic, which is the one that stops you from pooping.
Oh, sympathetic.
So when you're in sympathetic state,
You don't
what
poop.
yeah, what are the types of thoughts and emotions that will put you into sympathetic state?
Fight, flight, freeze, relationship issues, even kids like can't get their homework done in time. They're going to fail. Any kind of fear response that is going to trigger a sympathetic response. Funny enough, if you're so sympathetic that your body will override that and evacuate your bowels to actually make you lighter so you can run better, so you don't perforate your bowels while running.
I was wondering if you're going to say that because yeah, if you're like so adapted to the sympathetic state, I wonder if like that's what caused the IBS. Like you're always constipated, and every once in a while you're like, this next fart is going to be a shit, and you like having diarrhea.
Yeah, a lot of marathon runners get it. They're running in a
Yeah,
parasympathetic state so long, and then they go into that sympathetic state because they're pushing through it, and they hit that runner's high. And then once they run out of that sympathetic state in their organs, because they're sucking, you ran marathons, they're sucking down electrolytes and eating pasta before races and all sorts of carb loading, and then their guts can't digest all that food, and then their body goes, hey, your core's gonna shut off and your back's gonna get hurt, and then all of a sudden, yeah, they crap their pants while they're running, and then they're like, I don't care, I got to finish this race, with poo running down their legs. So yeah, if you could have an overly sympathetic response that triggers a parasympathetic urgent response to evacuate your bowels.
yeah. I would like to just say that's very real. Like that really happens. When I used to run marathons, I mean, I traveled all over the country running marathons, and I was one of those. And I was lucky because I have celiac disease and very limited on carb loading, even though that's what they tell you to do is to carb load. But I couldn't really carb load the day before, um, other than vegetables and fruit. And back then, I would probably have to add to my carbs like a gluten-free beer or like some sort of fermented drink as well. But yeah, even in 5Ks and 10Ks, like I would find that didn't suit well. But it's very real because you run marathons, you're running around a lot of people, and there's always those porta potties and people running out of the porta potties, and there's like little poo running down their legs. A lot of them have that. So
Yeah.
as a way to explain the sympathetic state, like if you're in a chronic stress all the time and you're always constipated, but the only other extreme to eliminate your bowels is like a very emergent like urge to go, there's never like that middle.
A good way to think about it is after us, we're very much like worms and snakes. So our mouth and our anus are one tube. From all the way mouth to anus is one tube. And funny enough, it's actually outside of our body. So our mouth to anus in our intestinal tract never actually makes contact with the inside of our body. It's a border like our skin inside of our bodies. So if you like people, people need to think about it like a snake. What happens when a snake eats and then it has to run away? It'll vomit its food out so it can get away. And it might starve because it may not catch anything anytime soon, but it's better than being mangled and eaten alive in that moment. So their natural instinct is to regurgitate all their food. And if it's already past us, and our stomachs and our intestines will regurgitate it out of our colons to so we can save our lives, because our bodies can't tell what's happening on the outside. Think about you in the dark and you hear like noises happening and you're panicking, but your body doesn't know if the TV is on, but you're in the dark. So it's reacting as if it's real. So the same thing is like you're running to work, but you had some coffee and you're really freaking out. Your body's overdrive. And so, yeah, you're constipated and all of a sudden you push the colon too far to the limit, and immediately your sympathetic state of the coffee puts you in a parasympathetic state so you can evacuate your bowels. And then people also use that to poop regularly. You know, "Oh, I can't poop without my coffee." And you're like, oh, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was going to talk about, and you can help me with this one, but I remember it's very early in my career. When I first started kind of transitioning to really focusing on women's health, I had a client, and she was a mother of three, single mother of three, all her kids were in school. She had a really good job. She was, for the most part, like pretty good lifestyle. But when she told me that she only poops once a week, and I was like, she didn't come to me because of that. She wanted to lose weight, get fit. And when she was surprised that I asked her about poop, and she was like, oh, well, like almost like no big deal. Like, I only poop like once a week. So and I was like, why? Oh, well, she was in her late 30s, and she said, well, it's been like that since I was a kid. No one said anything to you. No one has said, hey, you should poop every day. That should be happening every day. But when I started looking into that more, I realized, she, of course, I had to get her off of it's not Metamucil. What's the other one? Some fiber thing. They give it to kids too. It's gross. She would take that just to get her once a week poop. So I got her off of that, and kind of corrected her diet a little bit. Then I noticed, because she lived near me, I noticed every time she's getting the kids into her car and going off to work, she had these big, like stiletto type high heels. And I remember looking into some of the stuff that Matt Walden had written. And if you're watching this, like Matt Walden, he's Czech faculty at the Czech Institute. He does a lot of the research. He's brilliant. And
Great.
I remember seeing something about the way high heels cause the pelvic tilt. And when your pelvis tilts, because if you're on these high heels, you kind of have to, like, your pelvis has to tilt. Otherwise, you're just going to fall backwards, right? So it tilts, which then elongates the abdominal wall and the muscles, and it weakens your like elongates also the hamstrings. So you're kind of like all imbalanced. But when you elongate that abdominal wall, and I remember reading this and going like, oh my God. So he had written this article on like how it weakens the lower abdominals. And I'm going, that's where the colon is. And if that's weak and it's tilted, like that's gotta be doing something. So you're better at explaining the orthopedic. Can you explain that and how that will, it's pretty obvious, like you tilt the pelvis, you're gonna mess up with whatever's going down here in that bowl. But can you explain it for someone who's like, yeah, right.
Yeah. So if you think about it from this perspective, like you have this L shape. And so this is your foot, this bottom hand is your foot, this top arm is the perpendicular arm is your spine. So what happens after you go into a high heel, your anatomy, since it's designed to be at a 90-degree angle, let's say for simplicity's sake, when you start changing the angle, your body is going to lean this way, but you're not going to lean this way. So your body's going to have to adapt and bend its way back into straight. And so somewhere along that line is going to be bent. So to what you're saying, sometimes that pelvis shifts. So it's like that, they're sticking their booties out and arching their backs. And sometimes they tuck them under, like they have to poop, like they're running to a toilet. So those are the two usual compensations. They either flex their pelvis forward, like they're sticking their butts out, or they tuck their tails under. And then those are the two common and most adapted positions when someone's wearing high heels. Now, if it doesn't look like that, then something in the spine has to twist and rotate and cause all sorts of problems. But when you tilt that pelvis forward, what it does is it extends the spine so much that it compresses the nerves in your spine and stops connectivity going to your colon and your intestines. Also, it does the same thing up the chain. So what most people don't know about is they're always trying to affect the vagus nerve. I'm sure everyone's heard about this vagus nerve. The vagus nerve passes through your atlas, which is your C1 vertebrae. And so what happens at the pelvis, at the lower end of the spine, happens also at the top end of the spine. So if you compress your spinal cord at the bottom, you're going to compress your spinal cord at the top. So if you're going to throw off your atlas, which then can compress your vagus nerve, and there's no amount of like humming, tuning, singing, electroding, like that's going to keep it active. And so by default of not only are you compressing the lumbar spine when you're wearing high heels, you also translate that up to the head and the cervical spine or the neck, and you compress the very thing as the nerves pass out of your spinal cord and goes through your atlas, your C1 vertebrae, and goes down and innervates, which means puts electricity into your intestinal tract. It also does things like coughing, gagging, sneezing. It's responsible for those reflexes as well. And you're cutting off all power. It's like if you're at your house and you put like your circuit board is overloaded and you put one more thing in and that breaker flips. And so you flip the breaker and then everything's off. But then as you start turning them back on again, it flips again. And you have to go and turn it on again. And then so there's this constant like flip the breaker, which is like all of these biohacks to get the vagus nerve to function properly, which affects your whole digestive system. And there's not a shortage of books on the vagus nerve, but there is a shortage on books of what causes the vagus nerve to not properly send signals to your digestive system. So then if you back up your digestive system because it's going on, off, on, off, on, off, well, guess what's not working? All that food that's in the colon is now sitting there and rotting. And on top of that, then you take the pelvis and you put that flex into the pelvis, like what you're talking about, Sarah, and you cut off the circulation going to your legs, to your abdomen, to those muscles. And then you can't breathe properly because your lower abdominals are elongated and they're turned off. And so you're having this compounding problem. And then by the time they end up come seeing, you or I, it's the problem is so far worse than they can't poop. But all of this has to come, all of this is still, we're still talking about constipation. But this is stuff that like, yeah, people don't even look at. They don't even think about. They don't even think they're related. Like
about like they always talk about like, oh, women have a higher QL range, but like really like with high heels, it also causes like this, when you're tipped forward, it's like, let me see. Oh, wrong one right here. Tipped forward. Like you imagine like looking at this one, like she could probably activate her glutes. How's this lady here going to activate her glute? And look, there's just little short heels. So imagine like the big heels and you have to like go into lordosis and that like, then that causes the poor breathing mechanics, right? And the diaphragm, the two diaphragms of the, you got your breathing diaphragm and you got your pelvic diaphragm and it's not doing that accordion thing either. But on the show, just because I feel like the way you explain things is so complex, you need a little visual. But this one right here would be an example, because if this is the anus, this is where your poop is coming out of, and you're so into lordosis, it's the uterus and the bladder are pushing in to the colon. It's going to lock it up. Forget peristalsis or hydration. Like it's also causing all the other organs to push into the colon and the anus. Really, just thought I would add some visuals.
Yeah. And then we're only talking about constipation. That picture alone, I can I was about to rattle off a whole mess of things, like people stretching their PCLs too much. So the back, other one.
Oh,
I mean, even in that one picture right there, the girl, the woman on the right, I mean, her knees are hyperextended, which is going to strain the PCL, which also is going to, now, if we're talking about blood flow and circulation all over your body, the soleus, the calf, one of the calf muscles, is responsible for contracting and pumping blood up through, back, and up out of your feet and out and up to your through back to your heart. Yeah. So if you have those knees hyperextended, the vascular tissue, or the arteries and the nerves, they pass behind the knee. So if you're straining the back of the knee, you're cutting off circulation, which you'll see people getting, edema or swelling or cellulite, because they're not getting enough blood flow, and their body's lymph systems are completely stagnant. And it's like a pool with no circulating water. It creates scum, and your lymph system is basically like a scum system, cleans up all the scum. And so when you lock those knees in high heels, now you're not even getting blood flow or electrical conductivity into your organs. So they can't even turn over. Like if your car ever died and your battery's weak and it like doesn't start because it can't turn the engine over, and it's like what. Now you have that. The car can't start. Everything is stagnant. Your blood can't go back up to your heart and get more oxygen. So everything starts swelling because it's anaerobic or lacking of oxygen. Now you're building up bacteria. Now you're building up lactic acid, which, if people that have ever worked out, lactic acid is like when you're working out and your body starts cramping and it doesn't have enough oxygen to clean out all that lactic acid. And the hydrogen to come in and clean up all the waste as well. So they end up cramping, and that's what you're building up. So that's why people run out of energy. And then once you're running out of energy, now your colon is even more constipated with less blood flow, more anaerobic, which means that's where, if you ever grown mushrooms, it's done in an anaerobic environment. So now picture like fungus, you're creating an environment where fungus thrives. And then people have all sorts of other skin conditions, fungal issues. I know it's super hot to talk about, but it's very common. And then most of people's general concerns are actually because of these environments they're creating in their system. Rant over for now.
all because of high heels. So can women like not ever wear high heels?
I mean, they could.
Yeah.
I had
Stop wearing them every day.
yeah, like on a date, but like when you go to the restaurant and there's like a nice little tablecloth of the restaurant, take your shoes off. I have, I've had clients who sit in an office. They have their own office. I'm like, why are your shoes on? Go get some slippers. And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah. And then when you got to get up, put your shoes back on, but don't drive in them. Don't walk around all day in them, or don't wear them if you're sitting down and you can have privacy if you have to look super fancy. And I get that. I really do that. And those kind of environments, you got to like play the part, and I get it. Unless you're, top dog, then I can see changing the whole culture of that. But if there is still this illusion that you need to wear high heels, to get a man to be attracted to you, I'm going to tell you immediately right from the start, it has nothing. No man has ever seen a woman not in high heels and been like, nah. If only she wore high heels, I would have been attracted to her. I would have married her.
Women wear them for an illusion. It makes us taller. When we look taller, we look thinner. There's sort of this concept that we've adapted and been shown and conditioned to see is like, the taller you are, the thinner you look, the more your butt pops out, the more guys think, ooh, cute, and the more you can like go into lordosis, it does stretch and lengthen the abdominal wall. So there's that less appearance of any tummy fat, because so you even see women who, when they're sitting, if they don't want any, if they want to look thin, they do that lordosis to stretch the stomach. And so you're just going to pay for that. So I just say, if you want to lose weight, just lose weight. So much easier, and less painful. I don't know. Also, if you're not wearing heels, you're probably more comfortable walking around more, which will help you lose weight. You'll probably be more motivated or driven to like walk around more. I don't know. I've worn heels, I don't know, a handful of times in the almost 9-10 years we've been together. And what's the first thing I do? When I get the heels on and we walk out, we get in the car, first thing I do is I take the heels off because they're so uncomfortable. I don't know how women do it. I don't know how y'all do it.
I feel like one of the most underrated things on this planet is a good poop.
Yeah.
If I would give up a lot of things.
Yeah.
If someone said it's either you can have any of these other things, but you won't have a good poop every day, or if you have a good poop every day, but you can't have a lot of these other things, I will take the good poop every day.
I mean, well, think about it. What is poop? It's waste. It's all the waste from your body going out of your body. And so if you don't poop at least once a day, I poop twice a day, but my morning poop, that's like the glory of like it's the glorious poop. My afternoon poop is more like, it's still pretty good, but I would say if you're not pooping every day, then like your waste is just sitting there in your body. It's just like sitting there, hanging out in
Yeah.
your body. Just think about that. Think about the fact if you're not pooping every day, you have toxins and waste and fungus and bacteria just like hanging out there, just like just rubbing all inside your intestines and just hanging out.
And if this is too gross to listen to, turn it off. Do nothing about it. Let it sit there. Regardless, it's happening whether you like it or not. It's happening to everybody. And if nobody on this planet does not poop, everybody poops. There's books about it that they teach the kids. Everybody poops.
Like if you have leftovers in your fridge and the leftovers, like you never eat it, but they just start to mold and grow fuzz. And you probably culture some penicillin out of it because it's so molded and gross, or you come back from vacation and you're like, oh, I forgot to take that out and it's all disgusting. Like that's what's in your body. When you don't poop every day, you're just like, that's cool, that's fine. Can't see it.
And that happened in a fridge. Can you imagine what happened in your perfectly controlled 96-degree environment? In your
98,
environment in your body?
Yeah, leave that out in some Tupperware in the Texas heat right now and see what happens to it. That's in your body if you're not pooping every day. Go poop.
And so here's for anyone that doesn't poop or is curious about their poop. If you haven't eaten beets for like a week, go grab some beets, eat a whole bowl of beets. And then here's what you're going to do. You're going to look in your poop because it's going to be stained. And you're going to remember, you're going to write down, I ate beets at 7 p.m. Then what you're going to do, am I frozen?
A little bit. Yeah. Yes, you are. No, you're not.
Okay. So then what you're going to do is you write down, I ate beets at 7 p.m. Then what you're going to do is you're going to look into your poop, if you're pooping, hopefully, and then look for the first color of purple. Yep. The Heidi. Yeah. Look into your first bit of purple that you see in the toilet. That is the transit time, and it should be about 12 hours. That means when the moment the food went into your mouth and came out of you, that first bit has traveled through your system in 12 hours. That's what, and write down if it's 4, if it's 16, if it's 24, if it's 36. And then you keeping track of it because it should leave your body after 72 hours. And so if you have, like, for example, you don't see it after 24 hours, that means your body is not retaining and absorbing food properly. And if it's staying in there too long, that means it's probably fermenting and you're making some nice kombucha or some prison wine in your stomach, one of the two. So 12 to 72 hours of when you put it in your mouth, 12 hours later, you should be able to see it in your toilet. And then after 72 hours, you shouldn't see it in your toilet at all. That's a good rule to check for transit time. It's called transit time. Like you get on a train, do until it goes in the toilet. So
PTT.
yeah, but if you're not pooping, for a week, then I don't know where that food. I mean, I do know where that food's going. The colon, all it does is it swells, and then it holds the poop, and it holds the poop, and it holds the poop, and then your butthole is like this big. Let's say squeezes out some big logs sometimes. But then if you have a big colon, and it's trying to get through, it's basically kind of like pushing the excess poo out. But then everything that it's collecting on the side of the colon and having all this other bacteria.
Of your intestine, like of the large intestine, just like sticking on the side, and it just makes the constipation even worse and worse because more poop comes down. It hits the stuff sticking on the side, and it starts to like stick onto that, and so like only a little bit gets through. Ugh. But yeah, it's like the more constipated you are, if you're like only pooping every 3 days, I mean, think about if that goes on for years and years. Pretty sure everybody knows what happened to Elvis Presley, that like he died because he was on the toilet because he was always so constipated because he was addicted to the opioids and the painkillers. He was constantly taking them, and he had such a terrible, he needed to eliminate, and alone on a toilet by himself, and it put him into cardiac arrest trying to poop.
Trying to push it out.
Yeah, I forgot the exact length, but basically in the autopsy, the length of his large intestine was it was silly. It was like 12 times the actual length of a normal.
I don't know about the length, but I know I remember his colon weighing about 72 pounds.
Yeah.
He had 72 pounds of compacted fecal material in his body. Or impacted fecal material in the body.
When it grows and gets larger and larger, like imagine then if you take that out and you open it up and then lay it out, it's just like if you gain weight, your skin has to stretch too, right? And then you lose a ton of weight and it's saggy. That's what's happening in the colon, and it causes it. I feel like I remember them saying it was like the length of a full tennis court, something like that. Yeah. So if that's normal for you, if you're not pooping every day and you're only pooping like every 3 days, once a week, that's what's happening in there. That's what's going on. You're just like holding on to a bunch of fermenting fungal toxic waste. That's like a trash can that's been sitting out in the Texas sun for like 5 weeks, and your colon's just getting bigger and bigger and stretched out more and more. Like nobody wants to go out like that. Like at least if pooping isn't a motivation, let your integrity be. Like you don't want to go out like that.
And here's something that people didn't know. They didn't know. Most people with back pain have back pain because of constipation.
Yep.
Because that colon swells so much that your abdominal wall has to go flat. Because from the top of your rib cage to the bottom of your pelvis, the muscles always contract. So if it can't contract, all those organs go into your back, and then it makes your back round to contract your abs. And then people end up getting herniated discs and sciaticas and all sorts of other nerve problems and back pain. And
fun story that just happened to me, because I tend to we eat really good. We eat really clean, but I have a problem with corn. And if I eat to me like corn like products, and let me just say, and nuts. And so there's the Simple Mills almond crackers, and then the kids get these, they're like these organic cheese thingies, but it's majority is made out of corn, like cornmeal. And if I go too long doing that, like just a quick snack, grab that. So I've got nuts, corn, I get super constipated. And then what happens is I go outside and I'm shoveling and raking and shoveling and raking, and I end up with a severe back injury that put me out for how long? What, 4 weeks? Because I'm eating stupid corn and nuts. What's another thing too? What is it? Like if you're not eating actual food and you're just eating dry food a lot, that'll make you constipated. Nuts, beef jerky, like quick meal bars. What's another one? And then you're tacking on supplements and protein powders. That's a recipe for fucking disaster right there.
That's a good one right there. Yeah, go if you wanted to do an experiment, go take a scoop of protein and 20 ounces of water and then leave it there for a day. And that's what's happening in your body. It's rehydrating, and then it doesn't fully rehydrate. And so guess where it rehydrates? In your body, in your colon, where the colon's responsibility is to, its only real big responsibility is to pull water out of your food and into your body. And so when it's rehydrating inside of your body, it has no water to pull out, and then people wonder why they're dehydrated.
Yeah. That's happened actually, where we've made smoothies and then there was like a little bit left over in the blender, and just not even a whole 24 hours, just left it for the day until the end of the day we're going to clean. And then you look at the blender at the little leftover smoothie with protein powder. It's like gelatinous that you can almost just pick up and like play with, like Play-Doh. That's what protein powders are doing. Even like the super healthy protein powders.
They're all severely dehydrated, so that way you reconstitute them with water. But they're not always accurate how much water you need, because to properly hydrate a protein powder, you probably need more water than you can drink. And then you still have to drink water on top of that, because water in protein powder is not water consumption. That's separate. So if it takes half a gallon to hydrate your protein powder, well, now you need another half a gallon on top of that. So now you have to take in a gallon and a half of water to get your 20 scoops of protein in, or you could eat some steak or some chicken thighs or whatever, like some real food.
Oh, my stomach is starting to hurt. I mean, thinking about that. I think we've covered all the bases of constipation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are takeaways for preventing and reversing constipation?
Finding out your transit time.
Yeah. Limit your high heels. What was the one you said?
Limit your transit time, or limit your high heels. Figure out your transit time.
Right, transit time. Yeah. And corn, I don't care who you are. If you eat corn on the cob or corn kernels of any kind, you're going to see that when it comes out. That's why I always say, like, I don't trust a food that looks the same coming out than it did going in. But that's a way to test your transit time too. Because like, sometimes the beets will come out like purpley and kind of blend in with the poop. And some people don't like to go in there and inspect it. Just eat some corn on the cob. And that's a super quick way to test your transit time. Yeah, for sure. Test your transit time. Stop wearing high heels all the time. And if you're going to wear them, like, just get rid of the stilettos, do wedges, like 2.5-inch wedges, maybe. They're just better for you overall. They're still going to put you into that lordosis, but they're better for your feet, your legs, your circulation, and you can take them off easier and put them on. What were the other ones you covered too?
Look at what's happening in your life mentally, what you can't digest mentally, what kind of thoughts or problems are happening mentally, what kind of thoughts or problems are occurring emotionally that you can't process, or if you're into the spiritual arts, looking at the esoterics of the world. If you can't solve a problem, maybe letting it go for a moment, because it's probably making you constipated spiritually, mentally, emotionally, because you don't know what to do about it. So let it go. There's always time to figure that out. Work on your atlas, get your atlas checked by a NUCA chiropractor or a neurosomatic therapist. Oh, did Fathom shut down?
Okay, so takeaways,
I thought of another one.
what?
Teeth. If your teeth don't fit in your mouth and you can't chew your food properly, then everything that we've said previously about how not being able to digest and it sits in your stomach and your intestines for an extended period of time. So if your teeth can't masticate your food, there's another reason you're getting constipation.
So we've got teeth. If they're not fitting in your mouth properly, you're not masticating your food properly, and you can get constipated. We've got the LHPA axis, your thoughts, your emotions. If you're in constant sympathetic state, you're going to be constipated and or have IBS, sudden urge to go, followed by being constipated again. And we have to also with breathing mechanisms too. If you're not breathing correctly and your posture's out of whack and you got this thing going on, you can't fully digest. Like your intestines from here all the way down are crunched. You've got liver gallbladder issues. I mean, everybody should do a liver gallbladder cleanse at least once a year. If you got gallstones, you can have gallstone colic, which can also lead to UTIs as well. Can also send your body into shock. Like the longer, more chronic constipation you have, your body can go into shock. Like that toxicity and stuff just starts recirculating. And if you're that backed up, that's why some people who are really, really constipated, they have to have surgery to get it out. So, I'm not going to name names, but I knew somebody when I was a kid who had to have that done in my family. And that was scary, super scary. And this individual that I'm not naming, all he did was drink milk and eat blocks of cheese all the time. Still does. Hasn't learned a lesson. All right, opioids, painkillers, eating a lot of dry foods on the run, especially like beef jerky, nuts, meal bars, protein powders, things like that. Being dehydrated, not drinking enough. I feel like that goes hand in hand. Like if you're not drinking enough or breathing enough, like those are two basic fundamental things. They're like, just learn to do those things. You probably see a big improvement. Did I say the high heels already?
Worth a second mention.
Yeah, high heels, like they're cute, they make you tall, they make you look thinner, but they're not really helping. So take some slippers or shoes with you to work, or switch them out for wedges. Wedges are much easier on your ankles than your lower extremities. And just trying to wear them every day. I don't know how you do, how women do.
I don't do it.
Well, you do. You have once. I have picture to prove it. That I know of. Once that I know of.
Here's a funny thing.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, before you move on.
But also supplements, your medications, stuff like that, that can be really messing with you. So we've got an article on the website too that talks about like, are you over supplementing? Because a lot of the supplements, depending on like what you're taking, when you're taking it, how much of it you're taking, in addition to the food that you're eating, the enzymes and like all the properties of the supplements in the food will sometimes like fight with each other just to get through the system and ultimately like cancel each other out. So you could be spending a lot of money on supplements and it's not doing anything. It's not getting absorbed because of the food you're eating with them. That's why, there's certain supplements, read the bottle, because a lot of times they'll say take with food, or don't eat for 30 minutes prior or after, whatever. Like listen to that, because there's a reason for it. Otherwise you're just pissing and shitting your supplements away. And you're not getting nutrients from your food that you need.
Unless you know what you're doing. Because sometimes you can ignore the bottle because they don't know any better, because there's a reason for it. But for most people who are not practitioners, like Sarah said, read the bottle.
Yeah. I mean, one example would be trying to take a multivitamin and then eating an apple. That just the peel from the apple itself, the acid and enzymes that it gives off and causes the liver and the digestive system to produce, just literally annihilates and neutralizes any multivitamin you take. And then they cancel each other out because you cannot absorb the nutrients from the actual food you're eating. And then you create an acidic environment in your stomach, and then you've got indigestion. You're not digesting anything. So just, if you don't know if your supplements are good or what the timing or the food or whatever, like talk to a nutritionist, talk to a health coach, somebody who knows about that stuff.
Here's another example. You take all your high-end supplements and you take some activated charcoal because it's good for your skin, good for detoxification. That charcoal will pretty much absorb all of that and then get it out of your system, because that's what it's there for. So it's there to absorb and clean out your intestines. It's toxins, waste that's laying around in your intestinal tract, and everything down your intestinal tract and out.
You're doing any sort of detox with, clay or was the one you just said, charcoal, clay or charcoal. Even if you take clay and charcoal together, then the clay then just absorbs the charcoal. Like it's just absorbing on top of absorbing. You're not getting anything in your diet. And if you're detoxing, you're eliminating a lot of toxins from your body, and you need the nutrients from the actual food and beverages that you drink. You're not going to get it if you're mixing charcoal and clay in with that.
And another, at least clay. So clay can also make you dehydrated because it's very dry. And if you add too much, it can make you constipated as well. And then the good thing about clay is at least it's an exchanger, versus charcoal is pretty much like a sponge. It'll absorb everything, good and bad. Clay, on the other hand, has this cool property is as it absorbs things, it also releases beneficial minerals out. So you at least have that sort of exchange. But yeah, what Sarah was saying, about the charcoal and the clay, it's gonna absorb and neutralize itself, and it's gonna be very expensive poo, or not poo, since we're talking about constipation.
Yeah, if you're detoxing with clay and charcoal, or one or the other, or both, put it in your smoothie, drink it, whatever, but then you should wait at least an hour before you eat anything. Otherwise, you're wasting a lot of money on supplements and smoothies and food.
Yeah, charcoal is usually taken best alone.
Yeah.
Because it's not harmful, it's not irritant, it's not irritating to the gut. And you could take it all by itself and it'll pass right through. I've never taken any charcoal by itself and been like doubled over, but I have taken aloe and been doubled over when I took too much, or fiber or clay. Yeah, I'm like, oh God, I took too much. And I'm like, my stomach is like in a rock. And so there's definitely, but charcoal, it's pretty safe. And it's a
You will be black if you take charcoal, so don't freak out.
Yeah, and it's an ancestral tool where they would burn charcoal and then use it to detoxify themselves. They would burn wood, turn it into charcoal, and then eat some of it. So, so many healing properties. It's an ancient practice.
So charcoal, we covered that. What were some of the other ones that we talked? What was the first thing that you talked about in the beginning?
That was an hour ago.
Oh, the thoughts and emotions. Then we talked about the heels, the pelvic tilt. I think we covered. Yeah, and the atlas. Like, so those are all the things that people don't think could be making them constipated. And all they're doing is like they're continuing to wear high heels. They're continuing to go on about their life with dysfunctional posture imbalances, and not paying any attention to that. Like, well, I don't have time to go get body work done or see a NUCA or NST therapist. I don't have time to do this. Like, I don't want to give up my heels so they're just popping like probiotics and fiber, adding fiber in their stuff. Like, it's not doing anything, because if you're that constipated, you're wasting your life. Like, all your resources, money, time, all of it. You're just wasting it because you just don't want to stop wearing heels or go see a therapist to fix that shit.
Protein powders. or stopping to drink the protein powders, or eat real food, or stop eating snacks and junk and things that are very, or not drinking water, drinking energy drinks and coffee instead of water, which yes, there's water in them, but they don't count as water. And yeah, if you don't pay attention to these things now, go visit a hospital where people are either terminally ill or have been in chronic pain their whole life, or go to a ulcerative colitis meeting or a J pouch or a colostomy bag and ask them what their life is like. Like what is the day to day? And it's painful and exhausting and it's so avoidable.
Yeah, and you think about too, like the older generations, like we're talking like those that are in nursing homes now, why do they have to wear diapers? They can't control their bowels anymore because they were just white knuckling through life. And then they got old and they got to a point where their body just quit. And now they're sitting all the time. So now they're in like a constant parasympathetic state and, taking their pill, drinking the water that's given to them and all of this stuff. And they have to wear diapers because they've been, constant white knuckle or sympathetic state their whole lives. And now switch it over to the other board and their colon doesn't even know how to poop anymore. It just lets it go. It just no muscle there anymore.
Most people will attract a disease unconsciously. They're not thinking consciously, like, I'm going to get a disease so I can rest. Most people will unconsciously attract a disease into their life instead of giving themselves permission to rest and say no to things that they shouldn't be doing. Like we all know, like drinking alcohol on a constant basis, or I mean, I haven't drank in 12 years or 13 years now. So, but for a lot of people,
Except for that one time.
yeah, except for that one time. But I'm talking about consistently. I probably drink less. There's many years where I don't even put alcohol in my body, except for like when my grandma died and when my grandfather died, taking a shot for them. When we got married, people were very adamant on taking a shot with me. So like there has to be some kind of occasion for me
When
to.
Kyle brought the organic wine.
Yeah. But like, when's the last time I drank, which was, I can't even remember the last time I put alcohol in my body.
I mean, a lot of people have like a drink a day at least, like to unwind. And then weekends, it's like 3-4 drinks at dinner or at a party or whatever. But then you add in all the other stuff that you're taking, like supplements and food. And, again, alcohol will cause your blood sugar to spike like crazy because it's processed as sugar. And then you have a blood sugar crash, which is why a lot of people, when they're super drunk, need to go out and gorge on food because they just had that crash. And sort of like the drunkenness is kind of like hitting a lower baseline. And yeah, blood sugar crashes. You're like, let's go get some pizza. And that'll mess you up pretty bad. Yeah.
I can't remember what I was saying.
Was it to do with the alcohol?
This
is fun.
Can you pause it for a second?
I'll just cut it. I mean, obviously it'll cut.
Yeah, let me finish my thoughts though. Like I appreciate, because I'm trying to make a real, if we're gonna make a real content and I'm like focused in on something and I have a point, like I'm trying to finish my thought. So there's a whole thing I was going to, and then so this is like my content. Then I'm gonna ask you about your content, so that way you can make a whole speech about migraines, things like that. And I need some attention for in those details where I'm like looking right into the camera and making a point. What?
I don't know where to pick up now.
Well, I don't want to restart what I was saying. Like the whole point, I forgot where I started with this. The point about unconsciously creating a disease for yourself.
Oh. Okay, so people will unconsciously create a disease for themselves, but not like consciously, like, I want this disease, but they'll unconsciously create that.
Let me get into my brain. And if you don't rest, now, or if you don't give yourself permission now, people will attract a disease, not consciously. They're not thinking, I should maybe get a disease so I can rest. If you don't give yourself permission to rest now, unconsciously, what happens to a lot of people when they don't say no to things like drinking alcohol or eating junk food or going to bed on time or exercising or learning how to breathe or taking some supplements, whatever, that is beneficial, and they're not overdoing it. If they don't find a rhythm to release their constipation or their other things that are causing them problems in their lives, if you go to one of these nursing homes, then you're going to see people who have constantly have neglected saying no to things that they shouldn't have said yes to. And so if you're not going to take the time now, it's going to eat up your time later. So unless it's okay to give up more time in the future, which I think also people have this idea that if my later years will kind of suck. Well, no, not necessarily. I've seen some people that are very in shape, like Paul Chek is one of them, very in shape at 62 years old, moving around, running sprints. And that's the idea that when they look around, most people who are in their 60s can't move or think or poop or whatever. And they don't take the time to take care of their bodies up until the late age. So if you don't learn how to take care of these things now, they're only going to catch up to you later, giving you a disease, which is going to force you to rest. And then most people, and on a societal basis, have accepted that disease is permission to rest, instead of going, no, I don't want to go do that. I'm going to rest now. Don't be a pussy. Don't be a loner. Don't be a loser. Come with us and come drink with us. Come eat with us. Come party with us, whatever it is. There's certain things that I'm not saying never do it, but I'm saying when your body is telling you to rest, honor that, accept that, give yourself permission, or else your body is going to create a disease and make you rest, and force you to rest.
Yeah, so like you're chronically constipated and you're not pooping every day. I mean, and then that goes for 20, 30, 40 years. It's like when you are retired, you're forced to rest, but you're forced to rest during a time where you actually can really enjoy life. Oh, the kids are grown, and now you may have grandchildren that you want to play with, but you can't. And you're just kind of that acceptance that once I'm 70, 80 years old, I'm just going to be a vegetable, and I'll probably have this disease because my family it's in my family, or probably die because of this, or I'll probably end up with osteoporosis. It's like not, it's the menu, it's not the meal. Like you get to choose the meal, right? Like just because it's on the menu. And so I that it's true. It's like once you get to that age, you think about it, like you're not working every day. You're not trying to figure out how to pay bills or get supplies for your kids and braces and all these things that you imagine in life were causing you to white knuckle your way through life. It's like once the kids are out, and then you're stressing because maybe they're in college, and then you're stressing because you're planning a wedding and you got to pay for that, and then they're married, and then they start having grandchildren. By that time you're just like relaxing, and you can't have fun in the years that you're supposed to be relaxing and having fun. Your bones hurt, you got arthritis, you can't remember where you put your keys, you're always running to the toilet, like got to take your blood sugar all the time and your insulin, and it's just like that. What, who wants to go out like that? Who wants to end their life like that? You don't have to. So that's my goal. It's
Sorry.
like that back injury that I had, like really like put a lot of things into perspective of, you know, I could be my Aunt Litz, who was rollerblading up until she was nearly 90 years old. And, or I could be my grandma, who, you know, every time she got up, you could hear her bones crack, 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 and like she couldn't move, you know? So I could have one or the two. And so just knowing that I wasn't taking care of myself because I wasn't eating what I should have been eating, and I wasn't fully aware that I was constipated. And that's the other thing too, constipation. You may be constipated even if you are pooping every day. You could still be constipated. And so that's where I wasn't paying attention. Oh, I still had a nice poop this morning, but I was still constipated. I was still backed up. And that, you know, that referral between the organs of my large intestine and the muscles in my lower back and lower abdominals, like my large intestine was taking away, you know, all of that. It was like somatic reflex, like pulling away from my muscles. And so when I was doing these motions, I wasn't activating my muscles correctly, and boom, messed up my back. I'm out for 4 weeks. And it was so painful. I've never had a back injury. It was so painful, super humbling. And it made me realize, like, I don't want that to be me when I'm older. Like, oh, I had to bend down and pick something up off the floor and like broke my hip because I'm not eating right and I'm taking all these medications and not moving correctly and taking care of myself. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that same thing. It's like, you know, when people get a bruise and they say things like, I keep bumping this bruise. It's like I'm attracting wherever this bruise, you know, keep bumping it. The reality of the situation is you're always bumping yourself all the time. But it's only when you have an injury that you notice how frequently you use that part of your body, or how much that part of your body interacts with every other environment, you know, desks, chairs. But then once you have a bruise, it brings you awareness as to how often you actually hit that part of your body on everything. And don't even know.
But yeah, I've never had a back injury. And then I hurt my back. I didn't know that you can't walk. Like just taking a step along on a floor would send, you know, lightning pain up my spine and down into my hips. Like I didn't know. I just thought your back hurt. Like just just turning this way, or like waking up in the morning and having to activate my you know, obliques and my QL just to roll over and like pick myself up out of it. Like I couldn't even do that. Like all those things that are just related to a few vertebrae in your back. Like, yeah.
You knew that this is the my first back injury ever is what got me started on this whole journey. You knew that, right? When I was like 16, 17, I was in high school, and I would carry this backpack and I'd eat like garbage, eat other people's food, finish, you know, I'd be like, hey, you gonna finish that? I was that kid. You gonna finish that? Like, hey, you got like half a pizza left. You gonna finish that? Can I have it? You don't no? Okay, cool. I think I'm frozen. Okay, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, how was that? Are you gonna finish that, kid? Eat people's pizza, finish their bags of chips, because like people had self-control and I didn't know what that was. So I'd like, you know, but then one day as I was like 16, 17, I think it was like, I know I was in high school. I had my backpack, I sat down, first period in class, and I couldn't get up. Called my mom. I think she came in, lifted me off the floor, and then took me to the car. Our neighbor was a chiropractor, took me to the chiropractic office. They analyzed my spine, did all this stuff. They cracked me back into shape. And it was like, holy shit, I didn't know that your back could do that. And I didn't know what was happening in my guts, you know, because I never felt it, you know, but it like that, like a lightning bolt, it happens. And it's like you're driving, or you're like rowing a boat, and you're like, huh. And all of a sudden, waterfall. People do that all the time. And that's what happens in people's bodies. They don't notice it. And all of a sudden they fall off the waterfall, or they drive off the road. But yeah, that's what got me into it. And then I realized I felt so much better, but I didn't know what to do then. All I know is I felt better. That was my first experience ever with having an injury that I could not move from, outside of breaking my wrists, but that was traumatic related. This was, I sat down at 15 years, 16 years old, and I couldn't get up. I physically couldn't get up because the pain was so severe. And I'm like,
That's gotta be hard on the ego. A 16-year-old boy has to have his mom come pick him up.
not once did I think about that. I was in so much pain that I didn't even care. I didn't care who was around. All I wanted was to be out of pain.
I've never had any of those kinds of injuries ever until like my back injury. I mean, my back hurt when I was pregnant. Like that's duh, but
Yeah.
not like that. Not like that.
Yeah, but that's kind of what
I had
started.
so many clients with sciatica pain. I have to study it. I have to read about it. I have to learn about it because I can't relate to it. I've never had that. I mean, I tore my meniscus in playing soccer in college. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't my ACL, so it wasn't terrible. It just felt weird whenever I, adducted my legs. It just felt weird. I mean, I broke my wrist. I've sprained my ankles, but those again, like those aren't really.
Those are trauma issues. They're not like, hey, I sat down, I can't get back up issues.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I broke both wrists. I remember when I broke my right wrist, I remembered just the little things like squeezing toothpaste onto your toothbrush. Like I had to figure out how to angle the toothbrush sideways without the toothpaste falling off because I couldn't do this to squeeze. But again, that wasn't all that big of a deal. I remember I tore my serratus muscles being stupid when I was in my bodybuilding stage. This was like I did marathons and then I went into bodybuilding. And I got a little ahead of myself trying to add weight, just doing bench presses. So I was so excited I could bench press 120. And I forgot what I just remember, like I had to arch my back and I didn't breathe correctly when I pushed it up. And then when I was trying to pull it down, I couldn't. I was like, I had to like jump out. I had no one there with me. And I didn't think I was injured. And then the next day when I went to turn on the faucet, I felt like I couldn't move and like just sneeze or a cough, like shit. Like I think above all, broken wrists, sprained ankles, torn meniscus, tearing my serratus was probably of all of those the worst.
I'm glad you tore. Glad you tore your serratus. Because that's the thing you were complaining about the most. That, and then you said that's and after I fixed it, in the moment you were like, you came back and you're like, you're not as dumb as you look.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you weren't complaining about your shoulder injury, I don't know if we ever would have I would have got a chance to like flex my intellect and my skill.
Yeah. It wasn't like I mean, again, I lived every day with that, thinking like, oh, it's just gonna click all the time, Yeah. I know how to turn a man on. You're not as dumb as you look. We're still together.
Still together. Almost
Back for more.
Next year is gonna be 10 years.
Bananas. Yeah. But with the back injury, it's like I feel like I'm lucky to be married to someone like you, but I guess you could call that like, what would you call that? NST privilege by proxy. So it was convenient. But let me just say that if I wasn't married to, master check practitioner and neurosomatic therapist, I would have gone to one because it was so painful. And usually people's first thing is call a chiropractor or go to the ER and get some images done. I never got images done. You know, I for all we know, like I, you know, had a bulging disc or whatever, like we don't know. But I don't need to expose myself to that radiation and all that exposure, only to what? For them to give me steroid shot, or offer me surgery, when like you just spend the money, see a neurosomatic therapist, get it fixed. And then don't be stupid.
I still need to bill you for that.
I've paid you back at least 4 times since then.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, because again, like if I didn't have him walking around in the house, like I probably wouldn't be also as mindful about my breathing mechanics, especially when I'm like going to bend over and pick something up. Yesterday was the first day I went out and picked up a rake. And as soon as I did, he drives in, he's like, rolls the window down, like,
She's like, what? I'm making.
I was just making it even. I wasn't shoveling and doing all that stupid stuff. I love raking. I just have to say, I love raking, even if it's 109 degrees outside. Raking is fun. I enjoy it. It's satisfying. Like you rake an area and you make it all smooth, or like area that's covered with like mulch and leaves and stuff, and you rake that out and you're like, oh, a whole new earth. Like just,
I will say that we have the best mulch pile in the neighborhood, probably in the county.
we do.
It's a very pretty mulch pile.
And it's symmetrical thanks to me, and it's nice and even thanks to me. It's fun. Anyway, I digress.
Constipation.
Constipation. It led to all those things. So yeah.
I think we have enough content on constipation.